It started on a Saturday afternoon. We were jumping carefree on the trampoline, trying not to spill the wine in our glasses. I thought Riley had been childish to buy a trampoline as a cash-strapped university student, but that was before the accident. On the bright Saturday in question, I appreciated everything I had previously taken for granted, from the sun on my face to the laughter of my friends. I glanced over at Max. We could have lost her. Knowing I almost died didn't keep me up at night, but the thought of the world without Max was unbearable. We were leaving a freshers' party, tipsy but not drunk. Maybe it wouldn't have happened if we'd been sober, but it wasn't our fault. We found out later the driver had turned around to accept a sweet from his friend in the back seat and didn't see the zebra crossing. Time slowed down. I heard the man in the passenger seat cry out. Riley, who thankfully hadn't stepped off the pavement, also yelled a warning, but it was too late. I saw the car barreling toward us in painfully slow motion, yet there was no time to do anything. No way to protect Max or myself. I was frozen, eternity and the end of time somehow coexisting. I don't remember the moment we were struck by the car. I woke up in hospital hours later, thirstier than I'd ever known, and my entire body aching. Max was at my bedside. Her face was heavily bruised, and she had a split lip. I would soon learn she had 3 broken ribs. It was horrible seeing my best friend this way. She was the last person that deserved it, but at least she was alive. I had bruising all over my body and suffered a concussion, but thankfully nothing was broken. Dr. Paulson said we were lucky. He had been unable to save people hit by cars traveling at lower speeds over the course of his career. The driver was arrested for dangerous driving, but he was sober, and it was his first offense, so in the end, he had to take a driving course rather than face criminal charges. I was furious, but Max persuaded me to let it go and focus on recovering. We both felt on our way to full health this Saturday afternoon on the trampoline. It was lovely seeing Max smiling and able to jump after weeks of intolerable rib pain. But then she stopped bouncing, and her face turned terror-stricken. I followed her gaze, but nothing was there. A tabby was in one of the flower beds, but we loved cats, so I doubted that was the problem. "Who are you?" "Get out of here," Max yelled, glaring at the empty patio. "What is it?" I asked. Riley came out with another bottle of wine. He glanced at the patio, then at me. His face told me he also saw nothing unusual. Max rushed off the trampoline. "Ginny, come on," she urged me. "What's wrong?" Max noticed my confusion for the first time. "You don't see that random guy?" "No, there's no one there." She looked at Riley. He nodded, confirming my statement. "Maybe we should go back to hospital. You might have hit your head in the accident," I said. "My medication can cause hallucinations. It said on the paper on the box," Max replied. "There's really nobody there?" "No one. I promise you, it's just us 3. "I want to go inside." Just like that, our carefree afternoon was over. I suggested Max talk to her doctor about changing to different painkillers. She agreed to call the surgery on Monday. She saw the man again the next day. We were eating dinner. One minute, she was laughing at one of Riley's dumb jokes. The next, she had that terrified look on her face, staring at the empty doorway. He's here," she mumbled. We assured her again that nobody was there, that she was safe. The next day, the doctor advised against changing her medication because she was due to come off it in a week anyway. He said she needed to finish the course if possible. She assured him she could cope with the side effects, and it seemed she was right. I knew when she could see the man because her expression changed, but each time it frightened her less. She said she knew he wasn't real, and he never tried to hurt her, so she no longer saw him as a threat. She was in good spirits when we headed home after our last lecture on Wednesday. The underground station was crowded. People were carrying placards, so I assumed there was a protest happening somewhere. It appeared to be about fast fashion. I took my phone from my bag, planning to text Riley that we were on our way home, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, and a stranger pointed at the ground. I had dropped my bank card when I pulled my phone out. I thanked the man. "Wait, you can see him?" Max asked. "That's him?" "Yeah, same clothes and everything." The man was already moving away from us as a noisy crowd of protesters shuffled onto the platform. I got separated from Max. The train was rumbling in the tunnel. I couldn't see Max, but I spotted the man. He would be able to get on the train. I suspected I was too far back if the carriage was already crowded, and I'd have to wait for the next one. Then the world returned to slow motion. It was like the night of the accident. I knew what was about to happen, but it was impossible to prevent it. A protester playfully shoved his friend, but the friend stumbled, staggering toward the edge. The train was coming into the station. The friend knocked into the man. I watched in horror as the man Max had been seeing all week collided with the train. Blood sprayed over the closest people. People screamed. I got knocked down in the panic. I curled into a ball, protecting my head with my arms, hoping this would prevent me from getting trampled. There was a sharp pain in my ribs as someone tripped over me. Eventually, everything calmed down. Max was by my side, her face spotted with the man's blood, her eyes red from tears. A young man helped me up. "I don't understand," Max sobbed. "I saw it," the young man told us. "They shouldn't have been massing around on a crowded platform, but it was an accident." He thought Max was unsure about what had happened, but I knew she was really questioning why she had visions of the man in advance of his death. We got home after giving statements to the police. I felt sorry for the protester that pushed his friend. He looked devastated. He would have to live with the guilt. This made me wonder if I should have more sympathy for the driver of the car that hit us, but no. He knew he was responsible for the lives of his passengers and everyone else on the road when he got in his vehicle. The protester couldn't have known the consequences of his actions. At least his friends survived, falling no further than the edge of the platform. I found Max inconsolable in her room that night. "I was meant to save him," she cried. "How were you supposed to know what would happen?" I asked. "I let him down. I won't let you down." She was talking to the empty chair in front of her dressing table. "Is someone there?" "A woman. About our age, maybe older." "Is she saying anything? Did the man ever talk to you?" "No. They don't speak. They just stare at me." "You didn't let anyone down, Max," I told her, but she wasn't listening. She was looking at the invisible woman, a woman that, against my better judgment, I didn't believe to be a hallucination. It happened at the train station again, but this time we were waiting on an overground platform. It was quiet. We avoided traveling at busy times after the man's death. It had triggered my memories of the car, and I'd started having nightmares. I was worried I'd have a panic attack if I got stuck in a crowd like that again. A couple joined us on the platform. The man was yelling at the woman, calling her all kinds of cruel names no one should be using to refer to somebody they're supposed to love. He was possibly drunk and certainly aggressive. Max looked terrified. "He won't hurt us," I assured her, trying to lead her down the platform away from them, but she didn't budge. "That's her, the woman I've been seeing." The train arrived. "Don't go with him," Max called out to the woman. "Stay out of it, you stupid bitch," the man spat. The woman looked at us sadly before turning to follow her partner onto the train. Max pulled her back at the last second. The man tried to stop the doors closing, but it was too late. His face was red with fury as the train departed. "This won't make sense, but he's going to kill you," Max said, a pleading tone in her voice, begging the woman to believe her. "Leave him. You can do better," I added. She looked at us like we were mad and ran out of the station. "Have you seen the woman again?" I asked Max in class the next day. She shook her head. "Hopefully that means she's safe," I said. "Nothing would have happened to that girl. You shouldn't be encouraging her," Riley snapped at me. Tears prickled my eyes. He wasn't there at the train station the first time or the second. He didn't see the man die or the aggression of the woman's partner. Then Max started screaming. Her eyes were consumed with terror, fixed on something or someone out the window. The lecturer helped me lead Max to the nurse, who eventually managed to calm her down. Riley had tried to come with us, but the lecturer said Max didn't need to be accompanied by more than one friend. "What happened? Did you see the woman again?" I whispered while the nurse was turned away, dealing with another student's cut hand. "I saw myself," Max cried. "I'm going to die." I took her hand. "You're not. You saved that woman. We can stop this." The nurse suggested we go home early. Max was in no state to return to class. As it wasn't rush hour, we decided to get the underground train home. I didn't relish the thought of returning to the same platform where the man was killed, but Max was feeling nauseous, and it would get us home much faster than the bus. We stood well back from the platform as the train pulled in. When it was stationary, I stepped forward with my arm looped through Max's, but she didn't move. She was staring into the carriage. "I'm in there," she told me. Her voice sounded strange, like she was about to faint. "It'll be all right. Let's get out of the station," I replied, leading her away. We got up the escalator before Max stopped again. "She says it's okay." Her voice was a hoarse whisper. "Who?" I asked, following her eyes to an empty space. Then she collapsed. I dropped to my knees beside her. "Max! Max!" I shook her, but she didn't respond. "Help!" I shrieked, my voice echoing around us. "I'm a doctor," a man said, crouching beside my friend, checking for a pulse. He started trying to resuscitate her. I realized he would only do that if... I couldn't believe this was happening. Someone tried to pull me away, but I fought them off and clung to Max's hand. I wasn't leaving her. The doctor stopped and shook his head. "Carry on!" I screeched at him. "Max, don't leave me. Please, don't leave me." She was pronounced dead on the scene when the paramedics arrived. They let me travel with her in the ambulance. My heart was in agony, knowing she was going to the morgue. Dr. Paulson looked grim when he approached me in the waiting room. "I'm terribly sorry," he began. "Unfortunately, Maxine suffered brain trauma in the car accident. I'm sorry we didn't pick up on it earlier, but even if we had, we couldn't have saved her. I don't like the term dead man walking. Angel on earth seems more appropriate." "She really was," I replied, silent tears rolling down my face. I waited while her family traveled to our university town to identify her body. I told them I was sorry and how loved Max had been by her uni friends. I stayed in the waiting room after they left. I was reluctant to return home to Riley, afraid he would blame me. "I wanted to thank you," said a soft female voice. I looked up to see a familiar blonde woman. It took me a moment to place her as the girl with the aggressive boyfriend. I didn't think I'd see you again. My brother's wife just gave birth, she continued. You were right. The man you saw me with would have killed me. He'd been beating me for months. I was in denial, convincing myself his apologies and excuses were genuine. I moved back home, and I'm taking out a restraining order against him. Can you thank your friend for me? She died, I said, fresh tears rising to the surface. I think that's how she knew about you. She was between life and death. You both were. Would you like a coffee? She asked. I looked at her again. Her eyes were kind. I nodded in reply. I'm Amber. I'm Ginny, I replied with a smile, thinking it was just like Max to save the life of my new best friend before she moved on.